What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Jeff Benjamin with 9 to 5 Mac. This is iOS 17, changes and features. Over 350 new changes and features. The public beta just dropped recently, and there's lots and lots and lots and lots to talk about. So be sure to hit that subscribe button if you appreciate videos like this and you want more like this. But I wanted to give a shout out to my friends over at Nomad. They sent me the MagSafe compatible stand, which is great for the latest and greatest new feature in iOS 17, that being standby mode. And this is an awesome accessory to take advantage of standby mode, one of my favorite features in iOS 17. Check the link down below for more. Let's get started. So let's talk about initial setup. So you have a bold version number on the software update page. When you go to settings, software update, you'll see iOS 17 in bold. Previously, not as bold. Now you have an updated iOS install interface as well that looks like this. This is the beta 2. Of course, the public beta is now available as well, and it should look similar. So you have the option to install tonight. We'll go ahead and do that. And then you see right here, update scheduled. iOS 7 beta will be installed when this device is locked and the battery has enough charge. So I'll cancel that auto update. Now you also have pull to refresh for updates, which is really nice. Previously you had to go back into it to view the update, but now as you can see there, you can pull to refresh to check for update. That's super handy. There's also a new appearance accessibility text slider that you'll find during the initial setup. So if you go through, you'll see this right here. You can choose the size of your text and icons on your iPhone from default, medium, or large. You also have, of course, the ability to access accessibility settings via the accessibility button in the upper right-hand corner, just like you could before. But on older versions of iOS, that accessibility button was available right here on the Quick Start page. You also notice the transfer your apps and data UI changes during the initial setup. So now you have icons, little glyphs to help describe what each of the options mean. The same options, but just in a different order with icons and a little bit different text to explain the features. So restore versus from iCloud backup. And then you have the from another iPhone, which is in a different order than the one on iOS 16. And then of course the don't transfer anything option is separate from the other options, unlike before. And in iOS 17, you can use another device to sign in with your Apple ID. So when you choose not to transfer apps or data, you'll see another new option here called Other Sign-In Options. Now on iOS 16, you can use a different Apple ID. You just tap that option right there. But here you get another option along with the same use multiple accounts, which basically is the same feature that you find on iOS 16. You can see there. But in iOS 17, you have the option to use another device to sign in with your Apple ID right here. And it's sort of like Quick Start, except you're just using it to sign in with your Apple ID. You're not actually transferring apps or data information. So let me just show you how that works. So sign in to another device, and all I need to do is just tap Get Started. And you'll see you can position the camera, capture the little code there, and continue on your other device to sign in. So then you can choose who's actually using this phone. So you just tap on the person that you're signing in and then choose Get Started. You can see personal sign in, keep this phone near your other phone while setting up. And you can see there the new animation for signing in looks really nice. So that updated Apple ID sign in loading screen looks a lot better than the boring sign in screen that we used to have on older versions of iOS. And you'll actually see that right here. That's how it used to look. Not nearly as nice looking. You'll actually still see a little hint of that once this animation completes right there, but it's very brief. So now enjoy your iPhone. You're all signed in with your Apple ID. And there's also light or dark display UI changes here in iOS 17. All right, so now let's jump over to the actual settings app and talk about settings. So the home screen is renamed Home Screen and App Library when you go into settings. So you can see that there, home screen and app library. So app library definitely gets a little bit more attention here in iOS 17 with regard to settings. So here on iOS 16, all you see is just home screen. Here you see home screen and app library. Now, there's a new display and brightness icon. You can see there previously just the two letter A's. And if you're a developer, you probably noticed the new developer icon. Here it is on 16, here it is on 17. It's now gray. You can also sort apps by usage and name for cellular settings. So if you go into the cellular settings here, you'll see this little option, sort by name. You just tap on that little guy and you could choose to sort by usage as well. And you'll see a new switch for cellular usage statistics. You can enable that or disable it. Disabling will reset or disable all cellular usage tracking and also reset currently tracked usage to 0. So just keep that in mind if you plan on resetting or disabling your cellular usage stats. And you'll find a new screen time, screen distance section under limit usage in screen time. And the whole point of this is to help reduce eye strain and the risk of myopia in children. Screen distance plays a definite role in that. So it will warn you if your viewing distance is too close for an extended period of time. So you can enable that. Now there's also sort of a redesign for screen time. You have limit usage, communication, and restrictions. And these are all broken up a little bit differently than they were on the previous version of iOS. You can see that app and website activity now incorporates things like weekly reports, downtime, and app limits into that one section. So you can turn that on and then you'll see them all appear just like that under limit usage. But now in iOS 17, you can use other features of screen time without having to use the limit usage portion of the utility. Now you also notice that instead of saying use screen time passcode, it now says lock screen time settings in iOS 17. So basically this is just a way to put a passcode on to restrict access to screen time settings. Now you have communication safety in messages. So if you go down under the communication tab, you'll see communication safety. That is a new feature in iOS 17. So this will check for sensitive photos and messages to help protect children from illicit photos and things of that nature. You'll need to make sure you update your other devices to iOS 17 so they can benefit as well. And you'll notice some tweaks with the passcode UI. So when I go to lock screen time settings to set a screen time passcode in iOS 17, you'll see the screen time passcode recovery screen. You see where it says email there. Well, on iOS 16, very subtle change, but you can see it has Apple ID next to email. That no longer shows on iOS 17. Like I said, very small detail, but a change nonetheless. Another difference, you have turn off app and website activity versus turn off screen time. So like I was saying earlier, in iOS 17, you can turn off just app and website activity and use other parts of screen time. But in iOS 16, it's just all or nothing. So you turn off screen time in iOS 16 and the entire utility is disabled, as you'll see right here. So we'll wait for it to disable. There we go. And now you do that here in iOS 17, you're just turning off app and website activity, but you get access to other things like screen distance, communication, restrictions, etc. You also notice differences with automatic updates in the settings app. So if you go to settings and then you go to general and go to software update, automatic updates, you'll see a little bit of a difference between these two. So iOS 17, you have the automatically install heading with iOS update security response, and iOS updates below that under automatically download. So just a little bit of a reorganization on iOS 17 compared to iOS 16. Again, not a huge deal, but change nonetheless. And continuing on the very subtle change bandwagon here, you see picture in picture now has a heading above it that says picture in picture. iPhone storage now features a pull down search box now. So if we pull down, you see that search box, whereas before there was like a little search button in the upper right hand corner that you see right here. So you tap that and your search window appears there. You also notice how review downloaded videos has been changed. If you go to iPhone storage, you see review downloaded videos there instead of review TV downloads. So a lot more broad in its description on iOS 17. And in iOS 17, you can now sort your iPhone storage by size along with name and last use date. So that is pretty cool. Let's go back to size. There we go. And you'll notice that apps are bundled by publisher in storage settings. So if I sort by last use date, actually let's sort by name. There you go, Apple incorporated, and that incorporates all of those applications: home, photos, news, health, tips, files, etc. And that includes the document and data that is shared and used among those multiple apps. You also, instead of having a full list, you have a show all button in storage to show all the items that are stored on your phone. So in iOS 17, there are tons of new keyboards, and I've went ahead and just installed all the keyboards that are new to iOS 17. And I'm not going to even try to pronounce these and butcher the names of some of these keyboards, but if one of these are in your neck of the woods or your region, or you speak this language, let me know down below in the comment section. Let me know if you're happy to finally see your language here on the iOS 17 keyboard. And along with that, there's a new inset table for keyboards list, and this also basically is available in other areas I've noticed as I've perused iOS 17, the inset little table there for the list of keyboards. And if you scroll down, you'll see that you have under emoji stickers instead of, well, as you'll see here, it previously said Memoji stickers. And if you go to settings, general, and go to fonts, you'll notice slightly changed font page. Here it is in iOS 16. Again, subtle, but nonetheless different. And you'll notice a new number format under language and region. So you'll see 4 different number formats, but look here on iOS 16, only 3. So which one is new? Well, it is this one right here. That's the new number format for 17. And there's new dictionaries. So a lot of fun stuff here. So there's tons of new dictionaries, one of them being Bulgarian. There's also, I'm not going to even try to pronounce all these, Catalan. There's Greek. Let's see what else we have here. There is Malay. Sorry if I'm butchering this. There's Malay English. There is Polish. And there is Punjabi English. And there is Romanian. And there is Swedish English. And VPN and device management has a new globe icon. You can compare that to the old icon, which just said VPN. And if you have a VPN enabled, you'll notice that the badge for VPN in the status bar has been slightly changed. It now features bolder text in iOS 17. And you'll notice legal and regulatory information. You'll see Made in China in the bottom of iOS 17's regulatory info. And here's what it looked like on iOS 16 for comparison. And there's a new exposure notifications icon, which has been slightly redesigned. You'll notice that it's larger on iOS 16 and a lot smaller here on iOS 17. Now in iOS 17, you can use a previous passcode for up to 72 hours. So there's a new expire previous passcode now option in iOS 17 to deal with that. So let me just show you how this works. So I'm going to change my passcode. So it says for the next 72 hours, you can use your previous passcode to reset your new passcode if you forget it. So I'm putting in my new passcode, 1234556. So now it has been updated with the new passcode. So now you see expire previous passcode is now lit up because that previous passcode is still active for 72 hours, right? So let me just show you this, show you how this works. So I'm going to put the wrong passcode in there several times until iOS says enough is enough, as it has here. So if I tap forget or forgot passcode, I can try a passcode reset using the previous passcode. So you can see there, enter your previous, and I put that in. Now enter your new one. So I'm going to enter your new one again to confirm. So that just allows you to reset your passcode just in case you forget it and you still know your old one. All right. So now if we go back into Face ID and passcode, log back in, scroll down, and now you'll see expire previous passcode now. Let's go ahead and try that out since we no longer need it. You'll not be able to use your old passcodes. Go ahead and expire. And there you go. It's grayed out again. For iCloud settings, you're going to notice several new glyphs for your personal information. So you can see personal information, sign-in and security, payment and shipping, and subscriptions all have glyphs, whereas iOS 16 did not. Now you also have name, phone number, email renamed to personal information here in iOS 17. Password and security has been changed to sign-in and security. And the phone numbers and email from personal information has been moved. You'll also see communication preferences is buried deep within there as well in its own section. But going back here, you're going to notice that your phone number and your email and all that now resides under sign in and security. So let's go there now. So here's where you'll see your contact information like your email addresses and phone numbers. Now let's talk about AirPods. So the AirPods pop-up now works with dark mode. Previously, it did not. So here it is in iOS 17, dark mode enabled. You can see it on iOS 16, dark mode enabled, but you still get a white pop-up instead of black. Now, iOS 17 includes a new noise control design, and this is with the updated AirPods firmware, by the way. So you can see the noise control design here on iOS 16, which features a more rounded off look. Now you also get noise control adaptive. So that adaptive setting is a brand new setting with that new firmware for the AirPods. And adaptive audio dynamically blends transparency and active noise cancellation to tailor the noise experience better, depending on your environment. Now press and hold AirPods options now features that adaptive setting as well. So you can cycle through all these by pressing and holding the stem and include adaptive if you wish. Now, call control has been updated with a lot more features. So previously, all you had was an in-call control option, press once or press twice to end the call, but now you can answer a call by pressing once, mute or unmute now by pressing once or pressing twice, and then ending the call by pressing once or pressing twice. And of course, if you choose press once, the other one automatically moves to press twice, and vice versa. Now, a trio of really cool new features with this new firmware. Personalized volume automatically will adjust the volume of media in response to your environment. And that's really awesome. So when things get louder, your headphones get louder. Conversation awareness switches to transparency and reduces media volume when you start speaking to other people automatically. That is a really awesome feature. I've tested it out. It works really well in my experience. And then you have loud sound rejection as well. And now ear fit test has been moved to the bottom of the settings for AirPods. So you can see, scroll all the way down. There you go. And you'll find a new AirPods Siri setup. So let me walk you through that real quick. So you have just say, you know who, because now in iOS 17, of course, you can just say the person's name, the assistant's name. So you no longer have to say, hey, assistant, do this or do that. Now you could just say, assistant, set a timer for 3 minutes, as you can see there. So the setup for Siri has been updated with this new functionality in mind. And there's a new AirPods pop-up for adaptive audio and tap to mute, so that explains further some of these new features with that new firmware for the AirPods in iOS 17. And this is something really cool. If you have the developer tab enabled on your phone, you can actually go down to AirPods testing and enable the pre-release beta for your AirPods there and update your firmware for the AirPods right there from your iPhone, which is really cool. And you'll notice audio switching is way quicker in iOS 17 and in macOS 14. Switching between devices is super seamless, super fast. It's a huge upgrade in my opinion. And AirDrop gets a big upgrade in iOS 17. So when I open up the AirDrop interface, you can see this new feature appear as, so this is the name that'll pop up when you use the nearby feature, which I'm going to show you here, to share with intention. So I'm going to go to AirDrop. All you do is place 2 iOS 17 devices like this, and you can send over something via AirDrop just like that. It's a really cool new feature. You can also use this to swap numbers with name drops. If you want to quickly swap contact information, you can do that now seamlessly just by placing your iPhones together. And you can see that contact poster there. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Accessibility, as usual, gets a lot of upgrades here in this latest iOS update. So if we open up the Control Center settings and enable the hearing toggle, so I'll just show you what it looks like before we go in and add some additional options. All right, so now let's go back to accessibility. Scroll down and we'll see hearing control center. So go in there and now you can add additional or more controls to that hearing toggle. So I just enabled all 4. You can rearrange like this. And now we'll open up control center. Now when we tap, you can see all new hearing control center options right there. Now we all no doubt missed 3D touch, which haptic touch isn't as good as 3D touch, not as responsive, but I guess it's a decent alternative to 3D touch, but it's not true 3D touch. But this new accessibility feature, if you go to accessibility, go to touch and haptic touch, you'll find a new fast option. Previously you had fast, but it was sort of the default option that we have now. And now you have an even faster version right there under touch duration. So when you enable fast, haptic touch feels a lot more responsive. It's still not 3D touch like, but it is noticeably more responsive when you use that fast option. There's a new speech section with live speech. So if you go to live speech, enable that. And let's set up some of our favorite phrases. I've actually set up a couple already, but you just hit that plus button to add more. And then you can choose the speech voice. In this case, I'm going to use Siri, voice number 3. And now it's just a matter of using live speech. So just press the side button 3 times, and now we can type to speak.
Hello, how's it going?
So you can type in a phrase like that, or you can use one of your saved phrases.
Howdy, folks. Have you subscribed to 925 Mac?
And there's personal voice, and we did the video on this already, but basically this allows you to train a synthesized version of your voice basically, and apps can use that voice to speak aloud or speak on a phone call. So if you're ever in a situation where you may lose your voice in the future, then personal voice is something that Apple believes will help people in the future in this situation. Again, check out our dedicated video for more. You also have assistive access. Now, this is very interesting. This is sort of a alternative iOS experience that basically redesigns iOS from top to bottom to have fewer features, to be simpler, much simpler. We're talking simpler than GrandPad sort of a UI here. So you have rows or grids you can set up for the appearance. And then you have these 5 apps: calls, camera, messages, music, and photos that have been optimized specifically for assistive access. So they have a completely redesigned UI for this access. So I'm going to add an album here from the music app. And I'm going to add another application as well. So we'll just add calls. And here you can add specific contacts to allow calls from. You can select your contacts if you want to. And that's what I'm going to do here. So just bear with me for a second. And there we go. So you also have in-call options. So you can choose to show the keypad, or if you only want users to be able to just dial those particular contacts, you can do that as well. And then you have other apps that aren't necessarily optimized, but you can add those as well. And then just tap continue. So you have emergency. You could triple click the side button to access emergency calling. System notifications will not appear in assistive access. Software updates will be unavailable in this mode. And then privacy, certain privacy indicators are going to be hidden as well. So you have to confirm that I know the passcode for the iPhone. So this is your parental controls passcode. Now setup is completed. So now you can just enter assistive access, or you can choose to enter later. We're going to go ahead and enter now. And then put the passcode back in, and you'll see your phone reboot. And this does take a little bit of time. I sped it up a little bit, but there you go. This is assistive access. This is basically the UI that you'll be using. So we lock the screen, we wake it up. This is the screen that you see, the lock screen. You tap open, and you can see it's just really, really, for lack of a better term, I say dumbed down. That's not really a nice thing to say, I guess, but it is very, very simple. So this could be good for those that have never used a smartphone before, older ones, or ones that maybe have motor skill problems. This could be helpful. But you can see the music. I just selected a playlist, and it's super simple. You simply tap to play. And the magnifier hasn't been updated with assistive access in mind, but you can still access that app. So if we triple press the side button here, you can exit out of assistive access, or you can tap settings to access some additional settings like brightness, volume, appearance, dark mode, bold text, airplane mode, text size. You can do all that, but let's go ahead and triple press again, put our passcode back in, and now we're exiting assistive access, and this takes a while, so you just have to be patient, but that's it. That's assistive access. Now let's talk about motion animated images. So you can control whether images are animated. Basically, you can pause GIF animations, similar feature on macOS Sonoma as well. You just turn that switch off, and now animated images no longer animate. Turn it back on, and they're back to movement. There's assistive touch, dim flashing lights, and live speech options. So you can see those two options now appear under assistive touch. So dim flashing lights and live speech is there. Apple TV Remote has live TV buttons, so you can enable live buttons. Always display guide and channel buttons, in other words. So there is the Apple TV Remote without it enabled. So let's go back in live TV buttons. That is with those features enabled, regardless if you're actually using or controlling live TV at the moment. There's also live captions. It no longer says beta here on the main switch, but if you go into it a little bit, you still see, yes, live captions is still in beta. And there's an accessibility shortcut update with things like live speech, of course. There's also speak screen. And there's one more, and that is dim flashing lights. And per app settings gets the animated images toggle as well. So if we go in and say, hey, I want to just change the App Store, we can go into the App Store and change all sorts of things. But now, like I mentioned, animated images is one of those options. So lock screen and home screen. The first thing, wallpaper now extends to fill the entire screen. So here on iOS 16, you'll notice when I pinch like this, the wallpaper, because it needs to fill the entire screen, doesn't allow me to do so. But here on iOS 17, you get a lot more leeway because it extends that wallpaper dynamically with this blur to fill out the rest of the display. So you can actually get more into the view. Now that done button is now an add button, as you'll see here in the upper right hand corner. Pretty simple stuff. And it appears the occlusion, that depth effect, works a lot better here in iOS 17. Now the wallpaper dual tone style is accessible right from the lock screen with a single tap. So here I'm going to just switch my filters, and there's the dual tone filter and color wash filter. So here you see the little button there that allows you to change that style color directly just with one tap. But here you actually have to go in, tap the ellipsis, then tap style color to change the style. So it saves you half a second. Now, like any iOS release, you're going to have new wallpapers. So here on iOS 17, you get several new wallpapers, jewels in different colors, flowers, and you get several of those. And these are all kaleidoscope style wallpapers. You also have the ability to switch between light and dark mode for each of the wallpapers. So of course, with this being a kaleidoscope, it only makes sense that when you lock the device, you get that kaleidoscope sort of effect. And when you wake it, another kaleidoscope effect. What do you guys think about that? Let me know down below in the comments section. And of course, you have a new stock wallpaper for iOS 17. This one is it right here, folks. And the cool thing about this wallpaper, besides the fact that it just looks cool in my opinion, so here's what it looks like when it's asleep, and wake it up like that. Now you also get light and dark mode for this stock wallpaper. iOS 16 stock, you didn't get that. There's also Earth Detail wallpaper with cloud coverage. You can make that out right about here. And iOS 17 adds the ability to customize the font weight for the clock on the lock screen. So you can make it really skinny. You could just tap the font and that will put it right back to default. Or you can make it really fat if you want to as well. And there are a couple of new clock options. So you get Khmer, I guess that's how you pronounce that, and Burmese. Now you get a shortcuts widget for the lock screen in iOS 17. So we're just going to add a widget there. Go to shortcuts for the first time. You could just tap or tap and drag. And there you can assign a shortcut to that. Just tap it and find a shortcut. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and tap on done. And now we can run that shortcut. Just simply tap on it like this, and it runs that shortcut. Pretty cool. There's also a new state of mind health widget. So go to health, swipe over state of mind, add that to your lock screen, tap it, and welcome to health. So it'll take you directly to the support your mental well-being section to log an emotion or mood. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but here you can choose how you're feeling. So I'm feeling very pleasant, actually. I'm feeling slightly unpleasant. Why am I feeling slightly unpleasant? Well, it's because it's taking me a long time to make this video. It's irritating me. So you can just go through, I don't know why I'm showing you guys all this, but we're going to talk about it a little bit later. But that's basically the gist of it, having that shortcut right on the lock screen to log your emotions. And then there's a tips widget as well, so you can add that to have a tip viewable right on the lock screen. So how to edit a text message, just in case you forgot. And there's a button to cancel an alarm snooze from the lock screen now. So here's how it used to look. Here's the new interface for the alarm. And you can wake it up like that and just tap the X to get rid of it. So let's talk about widgets now. So the Home app widget is new in iOS 17. And it's a pretty awesome widget because it's fully interactive. I'm going to show you that here in a second, but here it is. You get two options, a small and a medium. So quickly control your favorite home accessories or scenes. We're going to go ahead and just add the small widget right there to our home screen. And you can edit that widget, just tap on it. You can turn off recommended, that will basically just automatically populate. And then you can go in and select a scene or accessory and do so manually. And you can sort that based on your preferences. So there we go. So you can see my air purifier. Now the air purifier isn't an interactive widget or interactive tile. So when you tap on it, it basically just loads up the Home app so you can control that. But iOS 17 does support interactive widgets like that. So you can turn off a light just by tapping it right there on your home screen. Now, unfortunately, that light, when I turn it off, I actually have to manually turn it back on because I kind of have it jerry-rigged. But normally you just be able to tap it on or off. And you can also control your smart locks as well. So I'm going to turn the smart lock or lock the smart lock. It's a little slow right now, but eventually it should, there we go. So it's locked and you can unlock it as well just by tapping it, and it unlocks like that. So the reminders widget gets some significant improvements. So you want to add this widget to the home screen. So it's fully interactive. So I have a list, a grocery list, my Whole Foods order. So you can see how many items are there, 18. You tap on it like that. You're checking items off your list just like that. You can see them count down. That's super handy. And of course, there are larger reminders widgets as well if you want more items to be displayed. But that's really cool to have that interactive, not even have to launch the app. You can launch the app as you see right there, but you don't have to. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that widget, and I can choose whichever list I want to view. So I can switch over to the iOS 17 list, and then I can just choose whichever item I want to check off. And you, like I said, you have larger widgets as well. So this large one, you got a lot of items. You can go in there and start checking off items on your list. Super handy for grocery shopping or pretty much anything else you need to check off. Now there is a new small shortcuts widget, and it's called Shortcuts Folder. So that allows you to quickly run a couple of shortcuts. We're going to add that to our home screen, and we're going to go ahead and edit that widget, and you can choose which folder, and it'll basically take the top 2 items in your shortcuts folder. So I can set orientation lock. You can see that runs immediately, doesn't have to launch anything, and I can lock the screen as well. So that can be super handy. There's new clock widgets. So you have clock 2, which is a really cool looking clock. Clock 3, you have, well, City's already been there, done that, but you have now City 2. Haha, City 3. So let's add clock 2. And I think that looks really sweet. Now there's the new calendar date widget. So let's swipe over. Let's find that calendar date widget. There we go. So that's brand new in iOS 17. We're going to go ahead and add that to the home screen. So if you just want a extra large day and date, that can do the job. You can remove that one there. So there's new Safari widgets for the very first time. So we're going to tap Safari. You see the reading list in 3 different sizes. So let's go ahead and add that small reading list widget to our home screen. So there's our next up item on our reading list. When you tap on that, it loads that article right up. But the cool thing is now it's going to automatically load up the next item on your reading list right on that widget, just like that. Now the Files app gets a new small recents widget. So we'll go in there and there's our recents widget, the small one. So we're just going to go ahead and add that to the home screen. And you can quickly get to either of those items just by tapping them, and it loads it up directly in the Files app. Pretty cool. What do you guys think about all this? Let me know down below. Now, there are music recommendations and top charts widgets as well, so you can add that. And what's cool is it adopts the color of the now playing song, which is really neat. So you can choose between top picks, new releases, stations for you, etc. And you can play directly, and you'll notice the dynamic color changed based on what you're playing. Pretty awesome as well. Now there are medium and large stock symbol widgets. So there's your normal symbol that you had before, but now you get a medium option and you get a large option as well. If you just want, or you just care about that particular symbol that much, well, now you have that. And of course you can go in and edit that widget as well. So go ahead and edit, choose your symbol, and you can also show stories, or choose how you show stories, I should say. So there's Tesla, and I'm showing stories, of course, but I don't think I want that. So what I'm going to do is go back in and edit and not show those stories. And there we go. So there's this small contacts widget that lets you add buttons for messaging and calling. All right, so we've added one to the home screen. We're going to long press, edit widget, and now you have show buttons. So you can choose message, choose the number for messages, and choose the number for phone calls. All right, so there we go. So now we got the 2 buttons there, and I can simply tap on one of those to initiate a phone call or message. Now Photos for You widget is now called Featured, and now there are 3 album widgets for photos as well, which I'm not going to be able to show, but you know, you get the point. And the Books Reading Now widget is just now simply called Read Now. You'll notice a new animation for number changes. Look closely, there you go. And you get a black background for reminders and calendar widgets. So a true black, not like a dark gray, but true black. So the dynamic island gets a new look for ringing alarms. So you can see what it looks like on iOS 16 versus iOS 17. You get that snooze button right there as well. And you get an updated animation when switching to silent in landscape mode. It's a little bit more bouncy here in iOS 17. This is what it looks like on iOS 16. A little bit more subdued, I'd say. And for those of you who like to cycle, well, you're going to be happy about this change, a new cycling live activity for cycling workouts. And of course, that corresponds directly with the cycling in the fitness app. It's going to be super handy. So you can go in right from the dynamic island and increase your segments. And of course, if you look on your Apple Watch, it will correspond to these changes as well. You get AirPlay suggestions in the dynamic island, which is a new feature. And stickers and Memoji. There are 3 new Memoji stickers. You get a halo, you get peekaboo, and then you get the smirk. I'm definitely going to go for the smirk. And now if you touch and hold an object in a photo, you can turn it to a sticker. You just simply tap add sticker. And yeah, oh, that looks a little gruesome there. But Yeah, so obviously you probably want to choose a better photo, but it's pretty cool because you can just go to your stickers within messages, for instance, and then add that sticker to your message if you want to. And then you can long press a sticker in the sticker drawer to add an effect to that sticker. So we're going to do that. You have outline, comic, puffy, or shiny. I like the outline there. It looks good. Let's drag that over. There we go. And you can use your stickers in more places. So for instance, you can add a sticker right within the Notes app. Oops. Let's undo there. And there we go. And again, I need to clean that sticker up. It doesn't look all that great, but you get the point. And Markup gets some significant updates. There is the UI update for editing screenshot names. So we're going to go in here and just go to options. So here's what it looks like to rename on iOS 16, and here it is on iOS 17. And you get some new tools in the Markup app. So new pen, you get the crayon, swipe over like that, a calligraphy pen, airbrush, and there's our crayon. Nice to have those tools so easily available within Markup now. A lot more flexibility to mark up your images in screenshots. And of course you can increase the size like that. And there's an updated plus menu that now shows add next to the item. So add sticker, add text, add signature versus just signature text on iOS 16. One thing you probably noticed is that the magnifier has been removed, which I guess is kind of a bummer, but I don't think it's a big deal because I don't think that many people actually use magnifier within Markup in previous versions. Now, there is a add sticker option for Markup, so you can just tap that, you get the sticker interface, and like I said, the stickers that we created earlier, you can go ahead and add one of those directly to your Markup there, or in this case, directly to your screenshot. And the shape editor is much more robust. It actually adopts the Notes app shape editor, so you get a lot more canned shapes that are easily added just by a tap in iOS 17. And the overall interface for controlling the shape, the weight of the lines, or the borders I should say, is changed as well. So you can see me going in here and editing that. So we can change the interior color. But like I was saying, it's much more like the Notes app. So here's the Notes app on iOS 16, and you can see add shape gives you that same interface. Now adding text has been updated with tons of fonts and more options. So let's go ahead and add text here on iOS 16. It's pretty rudimentary. I mean, you have a couple of fonts, 3 fonts to choose from, but not many. But here, when you add text on iOS 17, look how many fonts we get when we tap the fonts button. Literally, like pretty much every font you could think of is available there. So a lot more robust in iOS 17 as far as fonts. And you could still increase the size, no problem. Change the justification and add even bold, italics, underline, or strike through. Now add image description features a whole page now instead of just a single line. So you have a lot more room to describe your image, whereas here you just had this little line, but here it actually encourages you to really describe your image. So now let's talk about focus. So you have a new option when you go into focus settings for any of the various focuses. You'll go to study, tap options. Now you have silence notifications. So incoming calls and notifications will be silent either always or while locked. So it is really nice to have that option back in the stable. And then the order of some of these options, for instance, dim lock screen is now at the bottom under its own little appearance section right here in iOS 17. Now let's talk about Spotlight. So you have updated recent searches UI. So you can see my recent searches looks a little cleaner here on iOS 17 versus 16. Here's how it used to look on iOS 16. And here again, here it is on iOS 17. The cool thing is that you have a clear all button. You can clear individually, of course, but now you also have that clear button to get rid of all searches. Now you can toggle system settings in Spotlight Search directly. So you search for a system setting like Wi-Fi, and then you just simply turn that off via the toggle right there. You can see Wi-Fi goes off. That's a really cool new feature, and that's not the only system setting that you can control with this. There are many that you can control, and they even show up in recent searches so you can easily access those. Personally, I think that's a pretty handy feature. And there's a new Spotlight UI when searching for apps that aren't installed on your device. So I'm searching for Ulysses. You can see a little blue background there with the download option. So I can quickly just download that if I want to. And I do want to. Now this has been a long time coming, the ability to add calendar events using natural language. So doctor's appointment tomorrow at 5, and I simply tap the add button right there at the top to add that to my calendar. That is extremely handy. And then simply add. Now in iOS 17, Spotlight now shows recent files from the Files app. So you see the Files app there, link directly, but you also see the recent files next to it. And if you tap any of those, you can open those up directly within the Files app. And when searching for files, you can also open up the enclosing folder. So if you just tap on the actual file itself, you open up that file. But if you want to open up the enclosing folder, you just tap the little question mark there, and that opens up the enclosing folder and highlights the file. Super handy. There's also a hidden events app. When opening up an artist search and then tapping one of their show dates. So you can see the concerts here. Tap one of those, and it opens up an app called Events. And from what I can gather, you can see the Events logo there. What I can gather, this is only accessible via this method. But here you can go in, you can check out more music from the artist, in this case Regina Spektor. You can get tickets, you can add that concert directly to your calendar. It's actually pretty handy. And Spotlight will also make it easy to find the latest release from an artist. So if I type in Taylor Swift, for instance, tap on her name, you'll see a section called Latest Release. So Control Center gets some updates as well. You can ping your Apple Watch now within Control Center, which is handy. So you could always ping your iPhone from your watch, but now you can ping your watch from your phone just by adding the Ping My Watch Control Center toggle. So you just tap on that guy, and it'll ping your watch. In the music tile in Control Center, you'll notice an updated AirPlay icon in the upper right-hand corner. Of course, you tap that, it does the same thing as it does on iOS 16. There's also a new AirPods glyph that you'll notice in the music tile, and that's been updated. It has like a little blue outline for it, which is nice. So here you don't get that blue outline, but you're still connected to AirPods. Here you do. Makes it much more apparent that you're at just a quick glance that you're playing through AirPods. In a little while, we'll talk more about multiple timers for the clock app, but in the Control Center timer toggle, if you start a timer, you'll get a little plus button, and that will open up the clock app to allow you to add another timer, so you can have multiple timers there. Now let's talk about one of the headline features, standby mode. So this mode is available when your device is locked, and it's placed in landscape mode on a MagSafe compatible charger like this excellent one from Nomad called the Stand. Highly recommended, by the way. Shout out to Nomad for hooking me up with one of these for this video. Click the link down below in the description if you'd like to learn more. So here is the welcome splash screen for standby. You can view helpful widgets, showcase your favorite photos, or display the perfect clock. Swipe left or right to switch between them, so you can close out of the little splash screen. And here is what standby mode looks like. Now you can access your now playing controls just by tapping this little button right here, and that brings up your currently playing song. And you have the charging indicator in the upper right hand corner when connecting. So you can see your current battery status there. And you have landscape Control Center support, which is awesome. So you're able to access all of your Control Center toggles right there while your phone is in standby mode. Now, of course, standby mode has widgets. So you see them already. You just swipe through them. You can see the little dots on the side to indicate how many widgets are there. So I'm scrolling through. There's 4 here. See that? So nice and large widgets, and you have widgets on this side as well. And you can see the amount using the little dots as well there. So you can interact with standby widgets as well, just like you can with the widgets on the home screen. So I can go ahead and complete these various tasks within this reminders list, and it updates dynamically like that. Now, more apps need landscape mode support, unfortunately, so apps like Stocks, when you try to load those up, it doesn't look all that great. So hopefully that encourages more developers to enable landscape support for their apps, just like Calendar has excellent landscape support, and thus it's a seamless transition. Now you can configure standby widgets just long press, just like you would a widget on the home screen. So this looks very familiar. So you can just scroll through all these widgets. You can add or remove widgets as well. So I'm just going to tap the plus, and that'll allow us to add additional widgets, and you have all your list of widgets right here. And there's even others, and these are not optimized for standby. So I'm going to go to batteries. So you can see batteries has one widget there. So we'll just go ahead and add that widget. It just places it in the stack. Tap plus again. App Store has a today widget. We won't add that one though. Let's find something else. Calendar. Clock. Oh yeah. Let's go to that. Clock 2. So let's add that. Let's remove the other one. Remove. And we're going to add another. So the contacts, no. How about home? That's perfect. So let's go ahead and add that. So that gives us interactivity. And I think that should probably do it. So let's go ahead and tap the done button. Of course, you have smart rotate and widget suggestions as well. But now you can see all the little dots. So we have our interactive widgets there for a home widget. So now we can actually interact with those after you verify. So I turn my studio light off. Now you get the Siri UI in standby as well, and it's in proper landscape. And here you can go in and ask Siri to give you images or whatever the case may be. You can use Siri for pretty much anything here. And you get Siri results at a glance, which is awesome. So you ask what time is it in Sacramento, gives you those. There's also standby timer UI, which is really cool. So this timer UI, you can see a countdown. I'll sped it up a little bit there. Big buttons, so you can stop or repeat. And then you have Shazam in standby as well. So you're asking, what song is this playing right now? Let's see what it finds. There we go. So Coldplay, shout out Chance. All right. And again, the problem with that no landscape mode for the music app yet. And then you get notifications in standby as well, which are really nice and large, easy to see if it's on your nightstand. Really appreciate that. And live activity support as well. So that's awesome. There's Flighty, which is an amazing app if you travel a lot. And you get a photo slideshow. So if you swipe over, here's your photo slideshow. So featured, cities, nature. And you can tap on those and to hide or show the clock. And you get the little time indicator or date indicator. If you tap on that date indicator, it'll take you directly to that photo. But if you long press, you can show or hide any of these particular ones here. And we can also add another section by tapping the plus button. And we can scroll through some of your albums. And there we go. So I'm going to tap on wallpaper. So that brings that, all the photos within that wallpaper album will appear there. So I'm going to tap done. So again, like I was saying earlier, you can swipe through like that. And you can see the Ken Burns effect for this album artwork. It's a little on the slow side, but you can see slowly it is sort of zooming in on that photo. If you tap the date, like I was saying earlier, that'll take you directly to the location of that photo within that album. And again, that Ken Burns effect is just slowly moving that image. And it switches between each one. So there's also a full clock. If you swipe over again, you get the full clock, which takes up the entire screen basically, more or less. So you have those two clocks. Here's another. And here's another. Now you can customize all these clocks as well. Just long press like that. So you can cycle through all those clocks if you wish to and remove them. But if you tap that little button right there, you get the color picker for the clock. So you can switch up the color. Here you can change the date color. So pretty subtle. It also changes the hands, the second hand. All right, let's go ahead and tap done here. And here's the world clock. Not much you can really go and customize there at all. And then we have our solar clock. You can go in there and customize that. And then finally, we have our float clock. And you get some pretty nice little customizations there. So I'm a big fan of the float clock. I think it looks excellent, especially in that full screen view like that. Just a really cool desktop clock or nightstand clock. But the color picker in beta 3 was updated with dual color tones. And you can see those right here. So there's your dual color tones. So we swipe through. Now you have multiple colors. Really contrasting colors there. And that looks great. Now that's not the only new beta 3 feature. There's also a new glyph for opening or confirming that you want to launch an app from a standby widget that prevents accidental launches. So you actually have to tap that glyph to launch the app, which is cool. And there's a standby settings panel that you'll find within the settings app. So you can outright enable or disable standby just by toggling that. So if you want it disabled, you can. There's also display, which is always on. This display will intelligently turn off when not in use. When attention is detected, iPhone will not sleep the display. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to test the always on functionality that deep, but it does seem to work fairly well. Now, night mode in standby presents a red tint when you have low ambient lighting conditions. And then there's motion awake. Standby will turn on the display when motion is detected at night. So those are two cool features. Let's go ahead and show you what night mode looks like in action. So here we are. I'm going to turn the lights off. And you'll see night mode kick in just like that. So you get that infrared sort of look, and it dims even further. The darker it is, the dimmer it gets, so as to not disturb you at night. So this is obviously possible because of the OLED display. And then when you turn the light back on, it quickly goes back to normal. So what do you guys think about standby? Let me know down below in the comments section. Now let's talk about privacy and security. So deleted passwords can now be recovered for up to 30 days. Previously, when you deleted a password, it was completely gone. But now you can see here, this password will be moved to recently deleted. After 30 days, it will be permanently deleted. So I'm going to go to recently deleted and see what we can do to recover. So there we go. Let's tap here. You can see my password, and we can go ahead and recover that password just by tapping recover, and it's undeleted. Now you also have shared passwords for families. So this can share both passwords and passkeys safely and secure with families or other group members. So I'm going to create a group name. I'm just going to call it the fam. And you can add members if you want to, or you can do so later. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. And now you just need to add a password or multiple passwords to that group. So I'm just scrolling through all my passwords here. I'm going to find one. Let's find Best Buy. And we're going to select Best Buy there and tap move. And that moves it over into that shared the fam password list. So everyone that's a part of that group gets access to bestbuy.com for Jeff at 9to5Mac. Now you can also create a new password or move additional passwords to the group. Let's go ahead and create a new password though. And then you get the title, website, username, password, etc. If you go in and edit, you can delete existing passwords. And of course you can view the passwords and see what group they're associated with right there within the passwords. And you can also move to a group quickly or create a new group with that particular password. Now you can also clean up verification codes automatically in iOS 17, and this works for both messages and mail. So enable cleanup automatically, and now once you verify a code, for instance, a text message that sends a code, so I'm going to just show you this here with US Bank. So I get that 6-digit code coming from messages. So I'm going to just go in and insert that, and you can see it deletes that code just like that as soon as I log in. And now you see autofill passwords and passkeys in iOS 17. So passkeys are definitely becoming a thing. And communication safety, you're going to find that under screen time. I kind of showed you that earlier, but basically, again, this privacy and safety feature is to make sure that inappropriate photos are not seen on a child's device. And as this note indicates, you have to be running the latest operating system, iOS 17, or its equivalent on other platforms. There's also that sensitive content warning that we showed you as well. So this will detect nude photos and videos before they are viewed on your iPhone and receive guidance. So if someone, for instance, on a train or a plane, we've heard those stories about people sending inappropriate photos over AirDrop. Well, this will hopefully, combined with regular AirDrop restrictions, prevent that. Now, lockdown mode gets some improvements as well. So this is an extreme optional protection that really is only geared towards high-profile targets like celebrities or government officials and things like that. It really sort of just literally locks down your iPhone and makes it a lot less usable and functional in return for better security. So you can see some changes here like SharePlay and live photos being unavailable for FaceTime. With some other changes here that we see. Photos, location will be excluded by default when sharing photos, and shared albums will be removed from photos. You also have, let's see, I think that is, you have wireless connectivity, so automatically joining non-secure Wi-Fi networks is blocked. So those are some of the additions that you find here when comparing lockdown mode on iOS 17 versus iOS 16. And then there's Apple Watch support that comes to lockdown mode as well. And for iOS 17 devices, Apple has incorporated passkey support on its websites, such as iCloud. So now I'm going to log in. You should use the QR code to scan and then verify with Face ID. And that logs me in without having to use a password at all. Super handy feature there for sure. And now you can add or allow full access to the calendar app or restrict access. So let me show you what I mean here. So you get this little pop-up. Calendars will like full access to your calendar. You can allow full access or keep add-only access. So in this case, I'm going to choose the option to keep add-only access. So you can only add events. You're not going to actually be able to view the events that are already existing within this calendar. So let me just show you here. Finish up our setup. And you can see the calendar, no items, but we can add items. So you have a corresponding settings panel within privacy and security for calendars. And you can see now add events only, which is super cool. But you can go in and change that setting, of course, if you choose to do so. Now you already noticed the calendars database. So this is a new feature that shows all your calendars, 2 signed in accounts, 5 calendars with events. And you have full photo library access with thumbnails at the top. And these thumbnails are randomly generated, but you also have how many photos and videos you have in your library as well. And you have photo permissions that now show how many selected photos you have when you use limited access. So in this case, I just have 1 selected item. And a new pop-up when switching photos permissions from limited to full, it's going to say, hey, are you sure you want to give full access to your photo library and that many photos and videos to whoever's requesting it? And there's a new prompt that reminds you that you've given full access to certain applications, and you can easily limit access after reviewing these permissions. So Siri gets several updates in iOS 17. You have now Just Say Assistant. And for your sanity, I'm just going to refer to it as the assistant from now on. So now you can say assistant or hey assistant to invoke the assistant. And that only works with certain headphones connected. I think AirPods Pro 2 are required. So let's just go ahead and test it out and show you how this works now. Siri, what time is it?
Uh-huh.
And finally,
Siri,
back-to-back requests.
What time is it? 11:17 p.m.
What about in Guatemala?
It's 9:17 p.m. in Guatemala City, Guatemala.
And what's the weather like there? This works really well. I'm impressed.
It's currently raining and 66 degrees in Guatemala City, Guatemala.
How do you get there?
I found this on the web.
And there's a new assistant in calls feature in the settings. So this will make it so you can actually request help from the assistant during a phone call or during a FaceTime call, which previously you couldn't do. So here is with that setting off, and I'm trying to invoke the assistant. No can do. But here's with the setting on, and I can invoke the assistant just like that. The sound quality isn't as great while on a phone call, but it works. Now under the before searching heading, you'll see a new reset hidden suggestions. So anytime you hide a suggestion when searching, for instance, in Spotlight, I believe that's what this does. So when you hide those suggestions, this button actually will reset those previously hidden suggestions so that they start showing up again. And now you'll notice the voice for a live voicemail is based off the voice of your assistant.
After the tone, please say why you're calling. The person you're trying to reach might pick up.
So if I change that voice, you'll be able to see what happens. Let's go ahead and hear it now.
After the tone, please say why you're calling. The person you're trying to reach might pick up.
And there's a new assistant option to choose which service to send messages with. So I'm asking the assistant to send a message, but you notice this little drop-down menu in the upper left-hand corner. Messages is default, but I can choose another service to send that message with ease. So there are keyboard and dictation changes. For instance, there's an updated loop design, which makes it easy to pinpoint your cursor. You see the outline will change based on the app, so yellow for notes, blue for mail, makes sense. There's also dynamically changing inline predictions that occur as you type. You just press the space bar to accept the predictions. And I'm still getting used to this, but I think ultimately it's going to be a good thing. And you can still use the suggestions above your keyboard as well. There's improved autocorrect. So now when you type something wrong, I'm doing this on purpose, it will automatically correct that for you. And then you can go in and tap it and choose to revert to the incorrect spelling if you want to do that. And there's also a new dictation icon, which you can see right there. And we can just tap that to cancel. And you have visual lookup. So you have auto symbols support, so you can find out what those weird looking symbols in your car mean when there's some sort of problem. There's also food, so you can look that up to find recipes. Just tap the little visual lookup button and there are your recipes. And there's also new glyphs, including a new pet icon, which is a cute little paw there. And you can look up lifted pictures as well, which is cool. And you can even look up from a pause video. So I'm going to pause this video and now just tap like that and look up what that flower is. It's a dahlia. Beautiful flower. And Apple Pay and Wallet now has recurring Apple Pay cash payments. So you see that. You can choose when it starts, how many times it repeats, every week, every other week, every month. You can even add a memo below to tell the recipient what this is for, why you're sending recurrent payment. So this is for lunch, Ducky. $1 every month. What can I say? I'm a cheapskate. All right, so we have everything filled out. So you just tap next. And there you go. So $1 monthly for lunch. Just go ahead and send it. Verify. Double pressing the side button. You have your current way to fund it there listed. You can see payments repeats every month. Next payment July 5th, 2023. So obviously this is in the past a little bit. But then you see upcoming payments for lunch, sending tomorrow. And you see the little recurring button there to show you that it's a recurring payment. You can go in and edit those recurring payment details as well, or pause the payment outright or cancel it as well. So we're going to pause. And then once it pauses, you'll see a resume button that allows you to resume. But we're going to go ahead and cancel this payment and get rid of it. And in iOS 17, wallet passes now have a share link at the top level, which makes it easier to share. Okay, so let's talk about the clock app. So you can see the timer button in the bottom right-hand corner versus timers on iOS 17, alluding to the fact that we now have multiple timer support with labels. So here within the clock app, you can start a timer and add additional timers. So it's not just one timer, but multiple timers. You can add tons of them. So here you have the label. You can go ahead and label, give that timer a name so it's not super confusing. So I got the egg timer there going for 10 minutes. That's in addition to the original timer that we had still going right here. And of course you can add even more. So we'll add another timer. We'll make this one 25 minutes and we'll call this one pizza. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and hit start. And there we go, 3 timers going at the exact same time. And you can view an individual timer simply by tapping on it like this. And there you go, get the full view, you can rename it, etc. Now you'll notice that the time when the timer will sound is now listed above the actual timer instead of below like it was on iOS 16. And there's no outline around the cancel and pause buttons on iOS 17 like there was on iOS 16. And timer presets are now a thing. So when tapping the plus button to add a new timer, you're going to see several presets down here. You can scroll through. So you can just simply tap on one of those and it will start that timer immediately. Then you can go in and rename it if you wish to do so. But it's nice to have those presets, makes it super easy to start a timer based on those common values. You'll also notice recent timers. So down below, these are all the timers that you had recently, and even the labels are still there. So when you want to start one of these recent timers, just simply hit the play button and it adds it just like that. Super helpful if there's a timer that you use all the time. And you can create name timers with Siri. Create a new timer called Bacon for 20 minutes.
20-minute bacon timer, counting down.
So now when we go back to the clock app, you'll see that Bacon timer has been added just like that. Now you also have multiple timers on the lock screen, which I showed you earlier, but you can see all those timers there. Now let's talk about messages. So you have a catch-up arrow. So this will catch you up to the first unread message just simply by tapping that. And that allows you to catch up to the first unread message. Now you also have swipe to reply now. So just swipe like that, and that will open up the reply interface so you can quickly reply to a message in line. Super nice. And there's search filters. This is an awesome new feature. So you can search on name and then add specific filters to that particular contact. So I can filter on links, photos, location. Very, very, very handy new feature in iOS 17. So now I can filter on the photo. When I search, I find the photos, and then I can further filter on photos or screenshots. So these are just 2 screenshots. So it can easily find those there. Now there's a new plus menu design, which it just looks so out of place, and maybe this is the direction that Apple is going with their UI in the future. Maybe this is a sneak peek of that, but that's the new menu for accessing camera and other things. Now you tap the more button and that allows you to access your iMessage apps, and you can rearrange the plus menu items by simply tapping, holding, and dragging to rearrange based on your preferences. And you also have inline location sharing. So you tap location in the plus menu and you can share or request a location from those that you're speaking with. So you just go ahead and send that. And you can even see the typing indicator shows that the location is what is being requested. So that's a very nice feature to have that inline in the conversation to keep track of your friends. Now, audio messages are now highlighted in red. So you can see the little red interface for audio messages. And audio messages get a huge upgrade in iOS 17. You get transport controls for audio messages, so you can play and pause right there. And of course, you can still scrub throughout the message, which is super nice. And you can see a better interface for that scrubbing as that waveform sort of zooms in to make it easier to pinpoint exactly where you want to scrub to. So a very nice animation there. And one of the things that I really appreciate is that iMessage audio will keep playing even when the screen's locked. So I'm playing back audio now, and you can see the audio message transport controls are still available right here on the lock screen. And you can scrub and skip ahead or skip back. Now you can continue recording on the same audio message, which is really nice. So I'm recording here, stop, and then you can see plus 44, press that again, and I can continue recording where I left off. So that's a really nice feature, and then you can go ahead and just send that recording like that. And audio messages are now transcribed. So when you receive an audio message, you'll see the transcription of that right below. So you don't even have to play it, you can kind of know exactly what it says. And you can quick start an audio message via the little waveform that appears on the right side of the text input. Just tap on that. That will start your message. And there's check-in support in messages. So if you go to more, you're going to see check-in, and this allows you to let your friends know when you've arrived at your destination. And this allows them to keep track. You know, when you always say, hey, call me when you get home, and no one ever does, right? Well, this will allow you to do that in a more passive way so that you can make sure that your friends and family get to their destination safely. And you can choose between a limited and full tracking and location routes there. So there's what limited looks like. And then here's what full looks like. So you get more detail as to them traveling towards their destination. So here's the details on check-in. Let's go ahead and just choose limited, continue. So you can send the check-in, your destination and approximate arrival will be shared. You arrive at your destination, they'll be notified automatically and check-in will end. And if you're delayed or if your iPhone goes offline, the user will be notified as well. And if you're sharing location, the contact's location will be displayed in the conversation right there at the top, right below their name and their avatar, which is super handy. Quick glance, you can tell where they're at. Now you can insert a contact or a password via autofill. Simply tap, select autofill, and then choose contact or password. And when using the plus menu, the photos icon now shows the most recent photo that you took. So I'm going to take a screenshot here and you'll notice how the photos icon changes. Let's close out real quick. There's the old one and there's the new one. Now in the messages settings, you'll see check-in settings. So we can go down here, you'll see a check-in heading and there's your data. So here you can switch between limited and full. So we're going to go ahead and tap limited, and there you can choose between the two just like you could during the check-in process within the Messages app. You can also use settings to manage iMessage apps. So when you go into iMessage apps here, you can uninstall those apps, but when you do so, it will actually uninstall the entire app as well from your phone, not just the iMessage portion. So keep that in mind. Now, text messages indicate which line was used now here in iOS 17. So if I switch between business and personal, I send that message, you can see the P for personal, you know which line was used for that conversation. Okay, let's talk about mail. So there's a new search box at the top of the Move Mail folder list. So when you want to move an email, now you don't have to search for that exact folder. Say you have a ton of different folders. Well, now you can actually search for one, for instance, junk. Finds it like that, and then you just simply tap on it to move that message. And in Mail in iOS 17, there's a new attachment interface for quick download, so you can tap it to load up the attachment or tap this to download. And attachment links back to the originating email. So I'm going to download this attachment. You can see where it says from Jeff here. You tap that, it goes back to the original email. But what's cool is you can actually use an attachment to quick reply, just like that. Now let's talk Safari, because it gets a load of new features and changes in iOS 17. You get this new splash screen that talks about private browsing, which gets a huge upgrade in iOS 17. You first of all get locked private browsing, advanced tracking and fingerprint protection, and enhanced extension control. Now let's talk about Safari profiles to begin, because this is a huge new feature in Safari that really changes the game. So here in settings, you'll see profiles. Profiles allow you to keep your browsing separated. You may want to set up a profile for work or for school. Your history, your cookies, website data will be separated per profile. So when you create a new profile, of course, you want to start by giving it a name. I'm just going to call this one Electrek. And then you want to select an icon, and you get a new icon interface in this latest beta. So let's find No cars here that I can see. Let's find something that signifies, how about this bike? Because we do a lot of electric bike reviews as well. So we got the color selected. Now for favorites, it's going to automatically create a folder for the name of the profile, but you can link it to any other favorite folder if you want to. And you have open new tabs. And then once you're complete, just tap done, and you're going to see a personal profile. That's just the default profile that's created when you create a second profile there. So you have Electrek, you can go in there, delete that. You can change any of the settings or colors or whatever the case may be. You can delete the profile, and your extensions will show up there as well. We'll show you that a little bit later, but here's your personal profile. That can't be deleted, as you can see there. Now, let me show you how all this actually works. So we're going to go ahead and load up Safari. And Safari works just like you would expect. So we have our various tabs we can switch between. But when you tap the tab button in the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to see something new. You see the icon for your personal profile, and then you see a profile section that allows you to switch between profiles, just like that. So you can see even in the background, it uses the little icon that you selected along with the color you selected. So that's how you switch between profiles now. But the cool thing is, here I am in my personal profile, and I'm logged into 9to5Mac. But when I switch over to the electric profile and I log in or attempt to log in with 9to5Mac, you can see I'm not logged in because the cookies and website data are quarantined per profile. So you basically silo everything per profile. So if you have two different, for instance, usernames, you can log into those separately based on profile and keep them quarantined, keep them separated. So for instance, you can log into two different Gmail accounts per profile. This is a really major change. Now, like I said earlier, you have extensions there that you can link per profile, have enabled on one profile, disabled on another. So you see there's ESPN has dark mode enabled, but when I go over here to my other profile, dark mode is not enabled. See that? Even when I refresh. So I go to manage extensions, you can see it's off for the personal profile, but I'm going to switch back over to my electric profile, and you can see it is enabled just like that, dark mode. So that is the power of profiles in iOS 17. And like I said, there's a new icon selection interface here in the latest beta for your profile. So you have several icons that you can choose from. And you'll notice here that the X, whenever you tap the address bar, you see a cancel button on iOS 16, but you tap the address bar here, you see an X in iOS 17. So in iOS 17, you now get text-to-speech functionality for websites via listen to page. So watch this.
BMW officially launches its low-cost, by BMW standards, light electric motorcycle. Nearly 2 years ago, BMW gave us a look at a futuristic light electric motorcycle known as the C02.
And to control playback, you simply open up Control Center and go to your media controls there. You can skip ahead, just like that. It's really cool that you can do this. You can go backwards, of course, and you can even AirPlay this. Super cool new feature. Now, in previous versions of iOS, once you reach the 500th tab in Safari, you basically just couldn't press the plus button anymore. It would be grayed out. But now, it's going to tell you, hey, you have 500 tabs open. To open more, you will need to close some tabs. So you have a link to close the 100 oldest tabs or close all tabs. In this case, we're just going to close all the tabs. And you have faster switching to and from private browsing. So here you can quickly switch to private browsing, just like that. Just tap and tap like that. So basically just have 1, 2, 3 taps. Whereas in iOS 16, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 taps like that. Here you have 1, 2, 3. And speaking of private browsing, you can now lock private browsing. If you go to Safari settings, you'll see if you scroll down, require Face ID to unlock private browsing. Super cool feature. So we're in private mode here. And watch what happens. I'm going to go ahead and just lock my device. Wake it up. Open Safari. It's on the private browsing tab, but that's locked as well. So you'd have that extra layer of security to unlock. Just like that. Try it again and again. Unlock. Now you can of course switch over to your regular tabs if you want to and use those. But anytime you want to go back to private, you have to unlock first. And there's advanced tracking and fingerprint protection in settings. This helps prevent websites from tracking or identifying your device using advanced techniques. You can turn this on for both private browsing or for all browsing sessions. And there's enhanced extension control, which extensions with website access are turned off by default. They can be turned on later in Safari settings, and you can enable extensions based on the various profiles that you have set up as well. So here you can allow extension in personal or electric. You can have them enabled for both or none, however you want to set it up. And there's a new option menu for upload. So we're going to go ahead and select files to upload here. So you have the private access to photos. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's talk about some of these new options. You see that options button in the bottom left-hand corner. You also see where it says location is included. So the location, if there's location data on these photos, they will be included. But if you tap options, you're going to see include. You can disable location and captions. You can also change the size there, and you can change up the format if you wish to do so. And as you saw, there's private access to photos, so your photo library is shown here, but Safari can only access the items that you select. So you get this new splash screen. Your photo library may be shown in this app, but it can only access the photos and videos that you select to share with it. Because the app does not receive access to your photo library, you won't be asked to manage privacy. And then apps that use this will actually turn up here within privacy and security settings and photos. You can see here, Safari, private access. So only the photos that you select at that time will gain access, and you have the options where you can enable or disable location and choose your format as well. So that's always nice to know. Now, here's a really cool thing. Size calculation is now performed within the options menu. So here on iOS 16, it calculates the size right here. So you can see the size of those two. But when I select something here, you don't see that size listed. But if you go into the options, you can see the estimated size for everything you have selected right there. So 4.2 megabytes. And here's a really cool feature. In iOS 17, you can now designate a separate search engine for private browsing. So here's your normal search engine. I have Google selected. But for private browsing, you can go in there. It will default to the search engine you have selected in general, but you can choose a separate if you want to. So if you want DuckDuckGo just for private searches, you can do that. So here's me searching regularly in regular mode. 9to5Mac searches Google, right? But watch what happens when I switch over to private. And I'm going to perform a search here. And notice where it's searching. DuckDuckGo. You can already see it there. All right, so let's go ahead and perform the search. And there it searches DuckDuckGo. Now, another thing you may have noticed, and we're going to pause right here. You can see the last time you actually visited a website that you're looking up. So you can see visited 9 minutes ago, 12 seconds ago. That's a really cool new feature. Now, you also notice in Safari settings that check for Apple Pay and block all cookies have been moved to the Advanced tab here in iOS 17. So previously on iOS 16 was in the root, but now it's over in the Advanced tab. Just an FYI. Another change in settings is the new Clear History interface. So here on iOS 16 on the left, when you clear history and website data, you tap that, and then you can clear history and website data, and then you can choose to close all the tabs there, right? But in iOS 17, it's a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more, you have a little bit more control, I guess you could say. So clear history and website data is its actual little section here, and you have the clear time frame now, so you can choose the last hour, today and yesterday, or all history. But here's the really cool thing, is that you can choose which profile you want to clear. So if you want to just clear history and website data from a single profile, you have that option. And now additional options, you can close all tabs. So basically you don't get that second pop-up asking you, hey, do you want to close all tabs as well? You can just do it all in one fell swoop. And you'll notice in iOS 17 for Safari settings, experimental features is now renamed to feature flags. And you have local weather for Safari searches. So when I search weather, there's my local weather right there, and it's hot outside. And when you encounter issues loading up certain websites, you're going to get this warning here. If the page is not displaying as expected, you can reduce advanced privacy protection, which may resolve issues. And now in iOS 17, conversions are built right into the search bar. So now you have 1 pound to kilo, 0.5 kilograms. And you can even copy that data just like that. Probably needs a little animation there to help you know you actually copied it, but nonetheless, it does work. And there's an updated UI for search. So you can see the actual favicon now listed at the top. Google suggestions are a little bit different with the heading there. The headings now get their own little underline instead of the little inline tables. I think it looks a little cleaner here on iOS 17. You get the heading for bookmark history and tabs. And you get a new little button for inserting the text directly into the search without actually submitting the search. And there's new UI for search and bookmarks history. So now your headings are bold and they are also collapsible for the periods of time. That's nice. And you'll see you have favicons for all your history. It just looks a little bit cleaner, a little bit more put together in iOS 17 versus how it looked in iOS 16. And you have an edit button where you can go in and select the items you want to clear. Here you don't have that, but you can swipe to delete. So I'm going to just select these two, delete that. Just like that. And of course you can still swipe as well. Now here's something really cool. Auto verification codes now work with mail, not just messages. So I just received this verification code in my email and I can just tap that and it will insert that verification code. The cool thing is that it actually, as I think I showed you this earlier, but it will automatically delete those and you can see it puts that verification code directly into the trash so it doesn't fill up your inbox with these codes that are worthless after the first use. Now let's talk about maps, because now we get offline map support, something that we've been wanting for years in the Maps app. Now you get offline map support. It will suggest the map based on your location, but you can also go in and choose your own location. So here's Chicago, and I can select the size of the map, and you see how the size of it changes in megabytes based on what it's actually going to download offline. So that's pretty small, 150 megabytes roughly. You tap download, you can see it download that map for offline usage. And you have your suggested maps there as well. So the map is downloaded. Now you have downloads. You can do so on Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi plus cellular. You have automatic updates and optimized storage as well. There's also this option down below to only use offline maps. And we'll enable that because we want to test this out. But when you tap on the map that you download, you can resize the map. You can go in and rename it. It tells you when it was last updated. And we'll just tap done here. So now let's go ahead and test it out and let's see what we have here. So we're offline. You can see where it says using offline maps. You can tap that to open up the offline maps preferences. And now we have Chicago downloaded, and you see a little border where it downloads that offline map and it shows you that, hey, everything within this border is available for offline. So that is really awesome. Let's go to another area. Let's see, we're offline now. So Kansas City, you can see none of the tiles are populated because, well, it doesn't have the data. It's offline. So go back to Chicago, we zoom in, and we have full access because this is available offline. Now in settings, you'll see spoken directions, voice volume. Let's go to spoken directions here. So you see new options for voice volume. You can select softer, normal, or louder volume. Now let's talk about the Home app, because the Home app gets a new splash screen. So you have accessory control widgets. You can access, monitor, and control home accessories right from your home screen. That is really awesome. You have a new look and feel for your accessories like thermostats. And finally, you have activity history. So that new look and feel that I was talking about, here it is, iOS 16 on the left. Here it is, iOS 17 on the right. So I think this is an improvement for sure in a lot of ways. And I like the fact that you have all of your settings for like off, cool, heat, and auto, they're viewable. Whereas here you kind of have to scroll a little bit, but you can see everything right here in this scroll wheel. What I also like is the fact that the background adopts the background of your home. It's not that little white background that you see on iOS 17 that you have to hit the X to exit out of. You simply just tap anywhere. Now, there's also new save quick colors that you'll find for your lights, for your smart lighting. So of course we have our adaptive controls. We have our various quick colors there, and then you tap again to edit those colors. And then you can choose your color or temperature here on iOS 16, right? So that's how it looks on iOS 16. On iOS 17, they do things a little bit different, so you don't tap on the actual color to edit anymore. There's a special little editing color on the very right. So you have that smart light color picker, you just tap that, and within here, you can set up your saved quick colors. So it's a little bit different in the way they approach this. Of course, you still have your little color picker where you can drag your finger and select the color. But now you have a separate brightness control for that. And you can see the brightness compared to the standard color right next to it. That's really cool. So I can set up the brightness here, 38%, and then I tap the plus button And that will save that particular quick color with the brightness set separately, as you can see right here. So I can have multiple quick settings or quick colors based on one color with different brightness levels. And we also have temperature, and basically the same premise there. You have your little square slider. And also you have swatches. So that's a little bit different, something new to iOS 17 for sure. Now there's activity history. This has been a long time coming. We've wanted this for years. Finally have it. It's very limited right now, but right now you can save activity history up to 1 month. So when you go into safety and security, you can find that there and enable that. So now you'll find activity history for things like locks. So you see home activity 66 events today. And this has history for both my Eve door and window sensor and my Aqara U100 smart lock. Now let's talk health. So there's a new physical effort metric that uses your Apple Watch. So you see physical effort here. So physical effort is an estimate of energy you're using to perform a task, excluding other factors such as temperature, altitude, and heart rate. So physical effort can be estimated and recorded automatically by your Apple Watch. So that's a new feature in iOS 17, but it doesn't stop there. You also have daylight tracking. And again, this uses your Apple Watch to determine how long you've been out in daylight. Time in daylight is an estimate of the amount of time spent in sunlight. And there's various recommendations for children versus adults, and it helps reduce the risk of myopia. When unobstructed, the Apple Watch can automatically record an estimated amount of time in daylight in health. So that's a very cool new feature. Now let's talk about the health app summary. That gets a new gradient at the top, as you can see there. Very subtle change, but a change nonetheless. And you have new sports available in health/exercises. So we'll scroll down here under activity. You see the no data available, but we have various things like cycling cadence, cycling functional threshold power, cycling speed, downhill snow sports distance, and more. And medication reminders can now be set to critical. So when you enable the follow-up reminders, you're going to see critical alerts here. You can set that to critical. So that ensures that these alerts will always appear on the lock screen and play a sound, even if you're in a focus mode or even if your device is muted. So if you have a medication that you absolutely must take, this can be a very helpful feature to remind you. And in iOS 17, you can set state of mind log reminders to occur at specific times. So we go to options here, and you can see state of mind during your day, end of day, but you can add a reminder, and that will allow you to set that reminder at a specific time to log your state of mind. So we'll just go in here and say, hey, every day at 6:45, we want to make sure that we remind ourselves to log our state of mind. And speaking of log, you can log an emotion or mood. So I just tap log. You say how you feel right now. How have you felt overall today? Next. Do you feel very pleasant? Very unpleasant? Why do I feel unpleasant? Well, let's describe this feeling. Maybe I'm scared or anxious. Let's go with anxious. Next. And what's having the biggest impact on you? There's a lot to choose from here. Let's just choose, I was going to say travel, but let's go ahead and just choose health. That has a big impact on all of us, right? So let's go ahead and tap health, tap done, and it logs your state of mind. Pretty cool little thing to keep a log of just how you're doing over a period of time. Now let's talk about fitness. So there's a dedicated settings panel now for fitness. Fitness grows up. So you can choose your notifications, live activity, cellular data, etc. And now you can stack videos. So if there's a specific video you like, you just add it to your stack. So we'll go through and just find several videos here. Let's go to high intensity. We'll add that one to our stack. And then you tap the little stack button and you can see all your videos in your stack, and it gives you the total workout time as well. And you could rearrange those and add additional items. You also have custom plans. So this is a really cool feature that allows you to customize a workout and a routine and build it based on your specifications, based on your requirements. You can say, hey, I want to work out certain days. I want certain activity types. I want certain time per day, total length of plan. So I want 10 minutes a day. Let's go 8 weeks. And I want to have core and high intensity. And then I have preferences. I can choose certain trainers if I want to. I could choose certain types of music if I want to as well. So you can really customize this to your liking, get it dialed in perfectly for you specifically. And then it tells you, hey, this is what you have coming up next. So you can see each day what you have coming up after that. And everything's going to be tailored toward the preferences that you set up in that custom plan. Very, very cool new feature in fitness. Now, there's also a trainer tips section. So this will help you to stay motivated with expert advice from those various trainers on the Fitness Plus team. You can view all of those. So this is good to help you just learn how to work out, learn how to do certain things, how to stay motivated, etc. And there's a redesigned sharing tab with highlights as well. So that's a nice redesign for competing against your friends. Now, FaceTime gets a massive update in iOS 17, and that update also affects the Apple TV because for the first time, you have FaceTime on the Apple TV, which is amazing. It works amazingly well with continuity camera on your iPhone. So all you do is accept like that, position your iPhone camera. I have this Belkin adapter. You can find that down below in the description, and that works remarkably well. And you can see the fidelity, the quality of this video is crazy from that iPhone. You have center stage compatibility. You have portrait compatibility. You even have reactions there if you want to. Very awesome feature. You can also leave a video message now in FaceTime with effects. So if you call somebody, they don't answer, you have the option to record a video. You just tap that and that video will start recording. And I actually received one from Fernando. He left me a video, so let's watch.
So it looks like it's working when you have an iOS 17 to an iOS 17 phone. Originally I tried it from an iOS 17 to iOS 16 and it didn't let me record a video, but it seems to be working. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on the video. 9to5Mac is close to 800K subs. Let's get it.
It's crazy because I never really thought about the ability to do this, but now that we have it, it's like, why did it take so long to get that? Now, videos are also playable on the Apple Watch as well.
So it looks like it's working when you have an iOS 17 to an iOS 17 phone. Originally I tried it from an iOS 17 to iOS 16 and it didn't let me record a video, but it seems to be working. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on the video. 9to5Mac is close to 800K subs.
Appreciate it, Fernando. That is awesome new feature for sure. And there's also reaction support, so you can have little hearts there. Sorry about the blurry cam, but you can see the hearts there from the reactions. There's thumbs up, etc. Now, FaceTime video settings are now available in Control Center. So you have reactions, you can toggle those on. You can toggle portrait and toggle studio light as well. And there's a video slider for the intensity for studio light and for the portrait mode effect. You have more depth of field like that. And there's support for silence unknown callers in FaceTime as well. So if someone's calling you from an unknown number, yeah, they're not getting through. Freeform also gets an update to support auto shapes, just like you could in the Notes app. So I can create a triangle with auto shapes, a circle, square, etc. Now let's talk music. Now I didn't film this splash screen because it appeared just out of the blue at random, and basically it says what's new in Apple Music. You get new SharePlay features, crossfade between songs finally, and song credits. So we'll talk about those more in depth here starting now. So first of all, I wanted to show you a new SharePlay feature called Preview Only for Me. And basically what this allows you to do is once you're SharePlaying, you can actually preview another song without SharePlaying that song. So you can, if you're like DJing or something like that, you're able to preview before you actually send it to SharePlay. So here I'm SharePlaying a song right now, but now I can preview this song only for me. I tap that and it's only playing on this device. It's not actually playing or SharePlaying that song on this device, which is really nice, right? So now once I decide, hey, I like this song, I can choose to go ahead and SharePlay that if I wish, or I can, queue it up, or I can just stop the song preview and go about my business, say I didn't like that song. And now there's finally song credits within Apple Music. So you can find out who wrote a song, who produced it, who was the engineer. So you just go ahead and select the song and then tap at the top right there to view credits. And there you can see who's behind Regina Spektor's song, Two Birds. So you have performing artists, you have composition and lyrics, production and engineering, a very robust list of who's all involved behind the scenes. And there's play music together in car via SharePlay. This is what was featured in that splash screen. So you see this new little button here once you're in the car and connected to Bluetooth. Now you just scan this code on another device, and other people running iOS 17 in your car can add music to the queue. So I'm going to go ahead and scan that code here just to show you guys. So connect to Jeff's car. You'll be able to control what's playing in Apple Music from your phone. And it is connecting slowly but surely. And this is kind of out of sync because it's not actually in real time. I just recorded this and wanted to show you what it's like. So Ducky wants to join, so I just tap the little green button there. And you can see Ducky is connected. So now I have another participant to be able to control the music playback in the car. So if they're in the back seat and they want to hear something in particular, well, they can just add something to the queue, or they can just go ahead and just start playing whatever they want to listen to. So here, this song, I can go ahead and just start playing that, and that song will start playing in the car. So someone in the back seat, for instance, can control the playback experience. So you can just imagine how nice this will be on a road trip where everyone can collaborate and add their songs to the queue. And in iOS 17, you now get a new, now playing full screen experience. So here, you can see these two songs, Shout Out Chance again, but you can see the album artwork here versus the album artwork here on iOS 17. And it is a lot more dynamic, full screen. You can see how the planets actually go behind the transport controls. Just a very awesome new experience, and definitely recommend check out all the album artwork you can, because there's some really cool looking stuff out there with this new full screen album artwork on the now playing interface. And there's a new move to top of queue option in your queue, so just move to top like that. And finally, there is crossfade support for Apple Music. So if you go to settings, you'll see a crossfade toggle. Just enable that switch, and then you'll find a slider that allows you to choose the amount of crossfade. So you can go from 1 second up to 12 seconds. So this makes a huge difference, especially if you're throwing a party and you're playing back music on Apple Music. Now in settings, you'll see another switch, discoverable by nearby contacts. So again, this is that SharePlay in the car feature. This allows people to discover your SharePlay without actually using that QR code. And now there's a new Shazam UI. So I'm just going to ask, what song is this? And it's listening to the song, not this song, but the song playing that I can't play because YouTube would ding me. Now you see there's a slightly altered interface there, and you get the new dynamic album artwork playing on the Shazam results as well. Now let's talk about news. So now Apple News Plus gains a daily crossword. So if you're running iOS 17 and you're a News Plus subscriber, you have this crossword puzzle. You tap right here. You can go between all the various, what do they call these things for the crossword? Is it clues? Not clues, I guess. You go through all the various clues. I've always been horrible at crossword puzzles, so please bear with me in my description. I know it's definitely lacking here, but you can also pause or play the timer. Hit this little button here. You have auto check. You have check square, check word, check puzzle. You can reveal a square, a word, or the entire puzzle, I guess, if you want. And if you hit the ellipsis button in the upper right hand corner, you can say about this puzzle, go to settings. You can show or hide the timer, highlight link clues, etc. And you can also view just in a list all the various across and down items in the crossword puzzle. Now the Notes app allows you now to link to other notes, and this is a really handy feature. Makes Notes all the more powerful. It's already super powerful as is, but now you'll see add link, and then you could type a URL there, or you can type the name of a note, and it will find that note. It'll show you the time it was last modified, so you can kind of gain some context. And you just tap the note you want to link like that. You can use the note title as a name if you want, or keep the link name. And there you go. So now when you tap on that, it links to that note. And then you can go to that note and link back to that note or to a different note if you want to. So we're going to do that now. Let's add a link. And again, we'll just type in there like that. And we'll link back to that note. So now we have just two links to this note, back to that note, and you can just keep on linking back and forth if you want to, like that. Now you also notice a rearranged format bar. So comparing iOS 16 on the left to iOS 17, you can see the format button there for the text is now in first place where it should be. And you'll notice other changes with the checklist, location, the table location. And now there's block quote support. So when you tap the format text button, you see this new option here to enable block quotes right within your note, just making notes all the more powerful. And now monospace is now mono-styled. So we're going to just select a block of text here, and we're going to format, and you'll see where it says mono-styled now instead of mono-spaced. Here it is on iOS 16. See monospace? But again, they're interchangeable, so when you enable monospaced on one, you get the mono-styled here on iOS 17. You can see the difference there, sort of like an inline code block. We see a couple of subtle changes in calendar here. So larger text for invitations is now bold. So no invitations here on iOS 16, none here. And then if we go into our events view, you're going to see no events, but again, it's a slightly larger and bolder look. Now the Photos app now gets quick crop. So when you zoom in, you just hit the crop button, and that immediately opens up the editing interface that allows you to quickly crop a photo. Super handy feature. And now you can search in Photos for the exact moment in your videos of an item you're looking for. So this one in car, you can see that little yellow line, that's when the car appears. So you can easily just quickly scroll to those areas to find what you're looking for. There's another car. See that? A little yellow line. Super handy feature, and that can make searching for items in videos, especially longer videos, that much easier. Now, there's updated media type glyphs for things like portrait, so you can see the f-stop indicator for portrait here on iOS 17 versus the little 3D block, and long exposure gets an update as well. And then private access to photos. So I showed you this earlier in Safari, but again, just to reiterate, your photo library may be shown in this app. So any app that has a request private access will not have access to your photo library, but only the items that you select. And again, you can go in there and change up whether or not to include location, captions, etc. And to go along with this, just reiterate again, the options for sharing photos now gives you the option to change the size, format, and location and captions as well. Showed you that in Safari. Now, there's also tweak sharing options. You'll notice you have send as the heading for iOS 16, where you get format for iOS 17, and then you have current instead of individual photo, most compatible, and now iCloud link is under send as specifically, and then you have AirDrop and iCloud links only, where you can choose to include all the photo data. That means location, depth information, captions, metadata, etc. Even edit history. And in the Photos app for iOS 17, you'll find an improved People album with support for pets. You can see right here, People and Pets. And there's a new Add People button at the bottom of the People album. And there's a new recently deleted button location here in iOS 17. So when I go to recently delete it, you see on iOS 16, you have just the delete and recover buttons automatically exposed. But here, you tap the little ellipsis button, and there is where the recover and delete buttons reside. Now the camera gets a new level, which is something that should have been there for a long time in my opinion, but now we have it, so you just enable that level. What's cool is this is actually a really smart level, so it only appears when it gets close to level, right? So if you're not level, it's not going to display because it appears you don't want it leveled, but once you get close to the level, it will display that, and then once it's yellow, you know it's properly aligned. But you can see it disappears here, but it only appears when you're getting close to that level horizon, which is a pretty smart way to go about doing it in my opinion. What do you guys think? Will you be using the level? Let me know down below in the comments section. Now let's talk about lock white balance, because that is a new feature. If you're ever shooting video and you notice how the color dynamically changes when you go from indoor to outdoor, well, you can lock the white balance to prevent that. And now while on video calls, you can now open up the camera app and actually expose the video section of the camera app, even though it will say now recording video is not available while on a call. Previously in iOS 16, it just wouldn't even show the video section or the video tab within the camera app at all. Now there's also rearranged camera settings. So you'll see here on iOS 17, you see preserve settings is now moved up to the top, whereas on iOS 16 it's a little bit buried down there below. And speaking of preserve settings, you now have depth, macro, and exposure adjustment preserve setting toggles. So depth control, it will preserve that setting. Macro control, you can preserve that one. And exposure adjustment, you can preserve that setting as well. So let's talk podcasts. So there's a new podcast splash screen You have improved playback controls, new Up Next design, and connect your subscriptions. And as mentioned, there's a new Up Next UI. So you can see much nicer album artwork with the description right there on the album artwork on top. And you have the play and pause button there, a little waveform, all integrated into that little peel area. It's not a huge redesign, but it looks nicer in my opinion. Let's go ahead and open up the now playing screen. And you can see definite difference here. The full screen now playing with the podcast album art looks a lot better, and improved playback control. So there's tons of new features and changes and tweaks within the playback controls. Of course, you have your various chapters. You can see the difference there, how that's been tweaked. Even has the number of each chapter within there. I just think it looks a lot better. But not just that, you have a lot of other little tweaks that you'll notice. For instance, the skip forward, skip back buttons, the location of those. You have the speed indicator. So that's changed. That's now closer to the transport controls themselves. You have the sleep mode. That's been moved up as well. And there's just a lot of little tweaks you'll notice. Even with the scrubber, that's been updated to be more like the Apple Music scrubber as well. So just a lot of consistency being brought to podcasts. Now, there's an updated library tab glyph. Again, subtle change, but it has been updated. Now let's talk about reminders, because reminders gets a lot of new features. So you get a new splash screen, talks about grocery lists, sections, column view, and a lot more. So we're going to talk about grocery list first of all. Grocery list support. You can just go in and show your list, choose list type, groceries. So this will automatically sort or organize your grocery items using sections. So now if I just type in anchovies, it's automatically going to put that in the proper section, which is going to be seafood, right? Yeah, and there you go. Anchovies under the seafood section. We'll talk more about sections in a second, but first let's talk about the Kanban board column view, and that gives you that nice list of columns for each section. Some people work better that way. And then speaking of sections, you can go in and add your own sections manually. You can go in and manage sections if you wish to. You'll see that right here in your list. Just tap the ellipsis button. And now you can add or edit sections. If you tap edit, you can go in, change the name, reorganize right there on the fly. And you can go ahead and add your own section as well. So let's go ahead and add, and we'll just call this keyboard. And then we'll move maybe the Newfie keyboard down below into the keyboard section. And the nice thing about sections, they're collapsible, so you can collapse them for organization's sake. Reminders, like notes, it's just a lot more powerful in iOS 17. Now, there's a new early reminder feature, so you can get reminders for your reminders. So you can just make sure it's just kind of a peace of mind thing, so you make sure you don't miss that. So you can remind yourself a day before, 2 days before, up to 6 months before if you want to, even an hour or a few minutes before. So that early reminder can be helpful. I've often wanted that feature. It's nice to have that now in iOS 17. So stocks now shows the percent change for all selected times. So previously you get the percent change for the 1 day, but if you skip to 1 week, and you can see on iOS 16, it stays on that 1 day change. Whereas on iOS 17, you can see that the change correlates to the time period selected. So you can really see how much things have grown or collapsed in that time period, depending on which stock you're looking at. Pretty cool new change for sure. What do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comment section. Now let's talk Translate. Translate gets a lot of little tweaks. You get recent translations. So it's nice because when you're searching or when you're translating, the recent translation appears right above. And the same thing was on iOS 16 as well, but it wasn't as prominent. This is a lot more prominent, your recent searches, which is nice, and they just automatically stay displayed like that. Now, another thing, UI updates additional tabs, so you can do a voice search or a voice translation, I should say, just using the record button right there within the translate interface. Just a lot, I won't say simpler, but it's a lot more intuitive in my opinion on iOS 17 versus iOS 16. And you can just keep on going about your business, translating various things. You can play back right there some of your older items. And there's even different ways to switch between languages here on iOS 17 versus iOS 16. Now the Tips app, obviously you now get iOS 17 tips here. It's not very fleshed out yet, but no doubt once iOS 17 launches, that will be updated with some bona fide iOS 17 tips. And the weather app gets a lot of changes. You get average temperature now. So you can see today's high and then the average high. So that's a nice feature to have. So you can have some context to see, are things normal or are things way out of whack? There's also a new wind map. So you can choose wind and you'll see that map along with wind speed. It doesn't appear to be working totally just yet, but again, something that is coming in iOS 17. You also get the moon stands right there within, and sorry, my voice is like, Jeff, you've had enough. But you get the moon stands now. So you have illumination, next moonrise, next full moon. You just tap on it right there, and that will give you even more details. And you can have a little slider there that tells you how things are going to be with each passing hour, which is a really nice new feature in iOS 17. And you now have a moon phase calendar built right in, so it makes it easy to see what the moon state will be for any given day. You'll know when the next full moon is or when the next new moon is. And there's new water droplets and effects during thunderstorms. So you can see the water droplets have been a thing for a while, but now they actually appear behind, as you can see here on iOS 16 versus iOS 17, they appear behind the 10-day forecast, which is nice. And you have where it says conditions here instead of temperature. So you see temperature there is 16, conditions on 17, and then you can now view the previous day's conditions, which is a really nice feature to kind of see what yesterday was like. Again, all about context, and that gives you context not only on conditions, but precipitation, etc. And there's redesigned weather cards, so you'll notice some subtle and some more prominent redesigns on those cards, and UI design and updates. You'll find that within the various sections like temperature, precipitation. You'll find additional little details in iOS 17 with some tweaks to the UI in general. Now let's talk about contacts, because now in iOS 17 you get the new contact poster feature. So you can go in and create your contact poster, which you can then share with others, your contacts only, or automatically share those as well. So you have name and photo sharing, you can enable that. You can go in and edit that, you can customize it, or create a new contact poster. Let's go ahead and customize this one, and we'll choose poster. And now you can add a photo, or create a Memoji, or just use your initials if you want to do that. But I'm going to choose Memoji here, and you can choose any of the Animoji, or create a new Memoji if you want to. You can use one of the stances, and you can change out the background color. I think it's pretty cool. What do you guys think? Let me know down below. And you'll see you can update. You can also crop to get it just right and change the background color as well. So when you text an iPhone user, they'll be prompted to update and see this new contact photo and contact poster. Oh, and here's what it looks like in the full screen view. All right, so let's talk shortcuts. There are tons of new shortcut features. We're going to talk about some of them. Personal automation, when you go in and create a new automation, that shows by default. You have to actually select it in iOS 16. But if you scroll down, you have the home automations as well, as you can see there. And now shortcut automation triggers can now be run without confirmation. So you see run after confirmation or run immediately. And automations are now available for transactions. So when you make an Apple Pay purchase, or you access a door, or you use transit, you can choose which cards are going to be part of that trigger. You can even choose categories. You can even choose merchants if you want to. You can really drill this down and make it really specific. And there's a Wi-Fi automation with connection interruption. So you'll notice either when the network is joined or when the network is left, you can automate things, and you can run after a connection interruption. If you reconnect to a Wi-Fi network within 3 minutes of being disconnected, this automation will not run again. So something to keep in mind there. And you also have Bluetooth connect and disconnect automations as well. There's also new clock actions. So yes, finally you can delete alarms if you want to do that. But there is, like I said, a lot of other clock-related actions as well, such as timers and stopwatch, etc. And there's new fitness actions, so you can mark a mirrored segment, pause a mirrored workout, resume mirrored workout. And there's new Freeform actions, so you can create a new Freeform board or open a Freeform board. And there's new scan documents action for the Files app. So that allows you to quickly scan a document. And you can get and set the hotspot password. Those are new actions. And there's a cellular plan action as well, so you can find your cellular plans. And you can reset cellular data stats via an action in shortcuts. And there's an action to open a tips collection. There's also a new show passwords action, which will showcase your saved passwords. And you can quick select an existing shortcut to run when you're setting up automation. And the App Store gets a new animated splash screen when signing into the App Store app. So we're going to go ahead and sign in here. And this is similar to the animated splash screen you get upon initial setup of your iPhone on iOS 17. And there's app download time estimates. So for an app that downloads fast, you're not going to get any estimates, but for an app that takes a while, you're going to see download estimates there right next to the download button. Very nice new change. And the phone app gets a lot of updates. Silence junk callers is now an option for T-Mobile subscribers, and I'm sure this will come to other carriers as well. So calls identified by T-Mobile as potential spam or fraud will be silenced automatically, sent to voicemail, and displayed on the recents list. Yes! And there's a new call screen that uses the contact poster. In this case, I'm just using my initials. But again, you can personalize your phone calls with the contact poster if you want to do that. And you can see the contact poster that appears when I'm calling someone that has a contact poster set. And in settings, you'll find a new live voicemail setting switch. So you can view a transcript of incoming voicemail in real time and answer the call before it actually ends. Calling and data rates may apply. So here is what live voicemail looks like. So once you're receiving an incoming call, you can just tap voicemail. It sends them the voicemail. And then they can just start talking. And basically, you can decide, hey, I recognize that person. I want to speak to them. And then pick up the call. You can accept the call as they're recording, just like old school voicemail used to be back in the day. Or you can just continue to just listen or I guess read and hear it transcribed for you right there on the fly. I can choose to answer it. And now I'm actually connecting with that person mid voicemail. And when using live voicemail, there's a new default greeting.
After the tone, please say why you're calling. The person you're trying to reach might pick up.
And voicemails now show in recent call logs. So that is super handy. You don't actually have to go to the voicemail tab anymore. It's right there embedded with the recent call, and you get that nice transcription as well, of course. And to go along with that, you now get an increased call log history limit. So there's a lot more history that I noticed in iOS 17. And silence unknown callers now goes directly to live voicemail again without ringing. So I disable caller ID on the outgoing call. And you can see no caller ID, so it sent directly to live voicemail and didn't interrupt me, didn't cause any alerts, didn't ring because there's no caller ID, and I can decline and block that if I want to as well. So ladies and gentlemen, that has been a look at iOS 17 changes and features. Over 350 changes. Which one stands out to you the most? Let me know down below in the comment section. And if you appreciated this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up and be sure to subscribe for more. This is Jeff with 9to5Mac.